So glad you're with us on the Texas Wealth Report. Brad Johansson with Summer Roberts of Impact Partners Financial. Nice to be with you again.
Nice to be with you.
Let's talk about maybe how we get over some things, because we enter retirement a lot of times with fear and trepidation. So I want to kind of talk about maybe some of the common pitfalls as people are approaching this time, head into. You're helping clients every day. Is there a top pitfall that you have people come in where you would say this is the one that usually people stumble on the most?
Yeah, I guess if I had to narrow it down to one, the most common thing I see are those people who have saved well and done a good job, but yet they're leaving their plan at risk, whether it's market risk, fee risk, all kinds of risks. So they've saved enough, they've done a good job, they've just left it out there exposed to so much risk. There was this gentleman, Tom, that I met with 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
And I'll never forget this conversation because I remember asking Tom, I said, Tom, how much money are you okay with losing? And his response, I won't forget. He said, I don't want to lose anything, Summer. And I said, but Tom, you're in the market. So that's, those don't go together, right? So after further discussion, Tom was okay with losing 10, maybe 12%.
Okay.
But that was it. That's all he could stomach. And so my team and I, we ran a risk analysis,
Sure.
a portfolio risk analysis. And the risk he was currently at, he could lose anywhere from 38 to 45% in the next market downturn.
When you shared that number with Tom, what was his reaction?
Oh, well, I remember his wife was in that next appointment when he came in, and I saw her kicking him under the table saying, did you know that? No, I think most people are surprised because Tom, if you asked him, he would consider himself a moderately conservative investor, right? But his wants and his actual were not really aligning. So we just had to change a few things just to get him in alignment with what his goals were.
See, when you say that brings us to a lot of this, and we've talked about this in previous shows where the terms that are used end up being emotional and they're really not descriptive enough. So Tom thought of himself as a moderate conservative investor. And when it turns out and you run the numbers, and math always wins.
It does.
If you consider yourself losing 38 to 40%, a moderate conservative investor, then okay, because the term can mean what it wants to mean when you say it. The problem is having somebody tell you what that definition is doesn't do anything. It's a subjective term.
Correct.
You have to run that. That's what we talk about in the Texas Wealth Report when people come in and try and figure out what kind of risks and the common pitfalls that you're doing.
Right.
Is maybe the definition that you think you have of yourself isn't accurate.
Well, and the other thing is I find that when you actually put dollars to it, people start to see it differently. Because me telling Tom, you're exposed to losing 38% to 45% is something different than saying, Tom, are you okay with losing $400,000 to $500,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Then it's very much more descriptive. When you're putting that together, let's even use Tom as an example in that. When you're running the numbers on this, I talk about pitfalls as hidden fees. When you're running through what people have in their portfolio, are there things commonly that they're paying for that they have no idea they're paying for?
You know, Brad, I'm constantly blown away by how little people know about the fees they're paying. I have people tell me all the time, oh no, my 401k plan, we don't have any fees. Really? So we do a fee analysis to see they could be right. You never know. But I mean, even a smart asset research study showed that the average 401k plan has just over 2% in fees.
2%?
Yes, 2%. And that's, that's all inclusive. And I think the more important thing when you're talking about fees is, what do you get for that? A fee is a problem when there's no value add, right? So you pay over 2% in fees for that 401k plan. What are you getting for that fee? If you pay a management fee to a financial advisor, right, or a fiduciary advisor, you should be able to very clearly define, this is what I get for all of those fees.
Absolutely.
Right? Especially if they're over 2%. My goodness.
If people are walking in, and a lot of you may have an advisor that you've worked with before. I mean, we see it all the time with people who are walking in and saying, I would like a second opinion because my advisor is doing this, and they've done very well for me. And yet they put you in a plan, just as Summer said, that may have hidden fees that they're not telling you about because it benefits the advisor to put you in a program that benefits them for a commission, that puts them on something like this. What is the difference in coming to Impact and saying, you know what, we'd like to join you because you're fiduciary and independent, which means you have the options of things that don't necessarily benefit you,
Sure.
But that's not your goal. The goal is to benefit the clients that you have coming in.
Right. As a fiduciary, you are client focused. We are required to do what's in the client's best interest first and foremost. So, that means we don't utilize any front load mutual funds or things like that would benefit us before the client, right? But I think the most important thing that we're able to provide people is that fee analysis, so they can see very clearly what they are indeed paying, because there are so many fees that are so hidden in there. I can't tell you how many people tell me, I don't even know what fees I'm paying. And I've even had a hard time finding them when you look at the statement. They're so deeply embedded in there.
Which becomes a pitfall to the...
Yeah.
Everything that we're talking about today are things that you probably need to know, that ignorance is no longer an excuse. You need an education on understanding what you're invested in, what your advisor is doing for you, and everything needs to be transparent. That's why we want you to come in. We're not selling anything. What we're trying to do is educate you on where you're going with your investment to take you into retirement that will last the rest of your life. So come in for a complimentary review, and we'll set you up with a Texas Wealth Report that will give you an idea, maybe in some of the pitfalls that you're dealing with, and maybe understand some of the terms that you've been using and understand maybe I'm not quite as aggressive as I thought I was, and I need to be a little bit more conservative. Maybe I need to understand the hidden fees that are in my plan. So make the phone call right now, 866-254-8026. Come in for that complimentary review and get your Texas Wealth Report. On top of that, how about a copy of Summer's book? As you do that, we want to help you retire with impact. This is all yours for free. This is the idea of getting past the pitfalls. Continue on that as Impact Partners Financial, and the Texas Wealth Report continues after this.
How did I become a financial advisor? Basically, when I was a teenager, my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother, what we found out afterward was she was left with a mess. There were accounts, policies that we didn't know why they existed. It literally took my family years to get everything in order for her. She didn't know where her income was coming from. She didn't know if she had enough money, and her health took a toll. So I watched that, and I just realized at a pretty young age that I don't want people to have to go through what my grandmother went through. Seeing her go through that was very traumatic at a young age. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind. So as I got older, I had a career that was very good and successful. But when the opportunity came to learn this business from my dad, I hopped on it because I knew that doing this business and learning this business that I could make a much more direct impact with families just like mine and help them and hopefully prevent a situation like my grandmother was in.
So glad you're with us on the Texas Wealth Report. Brad Johansson with Summer Roberts as we're talking about some of the common pitfalls that you may come up against in creating a retirement plan. And we talked about different advisors and how you may be dealing with somebody who is not a fiduciary and independent. And I know you have stories of people who have come in who are so grateful to the point of now being able to deal with some of the things that you're able to put them in as opposed to where they were before.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a good story. There was this gentleman that came in to meet with me, Charles, and he's an engineer, and I remember when I met with him, he was very arms crossed, very stoic, very guarded, and I walked in, and we're just chit-chatting, getting to know one another, and I remember the first thing that he told me was, he said, well, I just want you to know that I've had the same advisor for 17 years. He's done a really great job, and I just want you to know that. And I said, well, first of all, congratulations. That's pretty good that you've had
17 years
someone
is good.
that,
Yeah.
and you can say he's done a good job. So good job for him. But more importantly, the advisor that may have been good for you the last 17, 20, 25 years may not necessarily be the same advisor going forward that's right for you when you're getting close to or already in retirement. It takes a different type of advisor. It's one thing to help a client accumulate money. Right? There are plenty of brokers, advisors out there that can help in the accumulation phase. But it takes a different set of skills to help in what we call the distribution phase, right? When you're getting to that place where you're either almost to retirement or maybe you already are retired. And you have to start, at that point, you have to start taking distributions out. So it takes a different skill set, and there are a lot of other things we have to take into consideration at that time too. You know, legacy planning, we have to take tax planning, inflation planning, all of that has to come full circle, really.
So Charles comes in after 17 years and a guy's done a great job, but I'm looking for a second opinion. And that may be you looking for a second opinion. And it may be you that has said, you know what, I wish I would have had an advisor 17 years ago, which takes us to probably another pitfall. I know I've met and talked to a bunch of people who have this commonality of procrastination or head in the sand kind of thing. What they say is, you know what, when I get scared, I do nothing. Which at this point, when you're planning for your retirement and the rest of your life for something to last, to be able to say, I'm a little scared about this, I don't know enough about this, so I'm going to do nothing. And if there's a common thing of people that I talk to about what would you have done differently, it would have been, I would have started this sooner. Procrastination is a thing because, as you said, in accumulation phase, you're dealing with somebody who's helping you out. A lot of people are pretty good at accumulating, especially since the market wins over a long period of time. But time changes as we get ready for this. Right. How dangerous is it at this point, especially for people in their late 50s, going into their 60s, trying to figure this out, to procrastinate about what kind of a plan they should be putting together?
Well, you know, I always say there's the old adage of fight or flight, right?
Yeah, sure.
But there's actually a third one that's probably the most detrimental, and that's fight, flight, or freeze and do nothing at all.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like you said, they're concerned, they're worried, they don't know what to do, so they do nothing at all. And And the biggest issue with that is that if you don't have a plan at all, how can you go forward? I mean, a dream without a plan is nothing but a wish.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right? So I would encourage people that even if you don't know what that first step will look like, even if you don't know what the first step is, just take that step. I mean, you really ultimately you owe it to yourself, because this is what you have saved for your entire life, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have a plan in place, and it's so easy to procrastinate. I mean, I would rather mop my floor than do some of the things I don't want to do.
Well, this is kind of the thing that takes us to budgeting, and this is part of that planning process, is that a lot of people hate to put a budget together. It seems crazy to them to have to do that all the time and try and figure it out. And I know when you have people come into the office, you say, all right, what does it cost you every month to be able to get by right now? I never actually looked at that. Well, are you getting, well, I'm getting by, but I'm not sure what the number is. When people are coming in and we're talking about the pitfalls, some of the pitfalls are that we haven't figured out what our budget is. Let's get to our necessities at this point, and then let's figure out what we're going to do with the rest of it. And I know that we talk about creating that income engine to be able to last you through that. Understanding a budget, which is part of the procrastination plan, when they come into your office, is it important that they know where they are and where they stand so you can try and plan where they're going?
I mean, of course, that's ideal, right? But if they don't know, we can help them through that process.
Yeah.
We can help walk them through. We've got budget templates that we can work through together. But I mean, you made a good point. There's a big difference between the wants and the needs. And when we're doing income planning and retirement, right, we want to make sure that we cover those needs first and foremost, that it doesn't matter what happens in life, your bills are paid, your insurance is paid, you've got food on the table, all those necessities. And once we get that nailed down, then we can focus on the wants, right? Because you want to be able to live retirement life with your wants, or...
I mean, there are some people who want to just sit on the front porch. I don't know too many of them who just want to sit on the front porch the rest of their last 30 years. But if you have to do that, you have to create a plan for what's going into that income engine for the next 30 years. I mean, we talk about it all the time, that you need to be able to create something. Summer said it so well, that a dream is just a wish if you don't have a plan. And what we're trying to do is make your dream come true. Do you wish you could do something like this? And maybe I can. Maybe a plan would actually help you do that. So why don't you come into the office? Let's create a complimentary plan for you that will take you into a Texas Wealth report that is a holistic report that covers all the pitfalls that you may have been trying to avoid but didn't even understand you were walking into at that point. Let's do that for you by you making this phone call. 866-254-8026. It isn't magic, so you have to do a little bit of work as well. If you really want this retirement to be the one of your dreams, you've got to take that first step. Stop procrastinating. 866-254-8026, because every moment matters. Let's put something together for you that works. The Texas Wealth Report continues after this.
We see tons of people every day that think that they have a plan. When we get in and we dive in, there's a lot of missing components. Sometimes it's a good start, it's a good philosophy, but some of the old ways that people used to utilize are not the same things that are going to work these days. Financial planning has shifted and changed over the years, and we have to take that approach and be a little bit more progressive in how we plan for things. What's unique about our firm is we are basically a one-stop shop. We've got an accountant on staff, we've got strategic partnerships with attorneys, we've got a Medicare specialist that can help out. If they need Medicare advice, they just call our office. If they are concerned about long-term care, we can take care of that. We basically want to be everything for our clients so they don't have to worry about going somewhere else. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and you've got all these pieces and they have to fit together. That's one of our focuses, is the overall holistic planning, bringing all those pieces together to complete a full plan. Without that, you're at a lot of risk.
Welcome back to the Texas Wealth Report. Brad Johansson with Summer Roberts, as we're talking about some of the pitfalls that you may encounter in retirement. And some of the pitfalls may be, you ought to be careful who you listen to, because there are a lot of people who think that one size fits all for retirement, and nothing could be further from the truth. So you may be asking a family member, you may be asking a neighbor, you may be asking somebody at the water cooler at work, what should I do on this? When should I turn on my Social Security? Have you guys worked out a pension situation where you know it's going to work, and you probably have figured this out? Is one of the pitfalls listening to the wrong people about what the advice should be?
Well, it's interesting because everyone's an expert, right?
Absolutely.
But no, in all seriousness, we all have well-meaning people in our lives.
No question.
That care about us and want to give us good advice. But, get your advice from the professional who does this day in and day out and who is the expert in that field. Because like you said, Social Security, there are literally thousands of choices with how to file for Social Security. And one thing I can say for sure is that there is not one family that is exactly alike. So your cousin giving you advice on how to file for Social Security, the intention is good there, but ultimately, are they exactly like you? Do they have the exact situation as you? So everything needs to be customized, and that's where a true retirement planner comes into play, because we will ask you the questions that you're not thinking of yourself, right? And customize things for you, because everyone is different.
This is what's included in the Texas Wealth Report.
It absolutely is.
Give me an idea of what that all includes.
The Texas Wealth Report is very comprehensive. The output is very simple. That's why I love it. But the input and the work done on our team is very complex. But it will run an income analysis, which actually includes a Social Security analysis, because out of all those options out of Social Security, we want to narrow it down to the top, maybe 2 or 3 options that are best suited for you, right? So we'll run a Social Security analysis, we'll run a full income analysis. If there's a pension, we'll run an analysis on that, put all of it together in an income report. We also will run, we talked about risk earlier. We will run a risk and fee analysis to see, here's where you are now. It may or may not be where you want to be, right? If it is, wonderful, at least you know. If it's not, and we have suggestions for you, we'll make those at that time. But one of my favorite parts of the Texas Wealth Report is the tax analysis.
Which is most important right now, especially in the time that we're sitting in.
Absolutely.
There are people, as they're moving into this, who have never dealt with even the tax question and where they are in understanding what that is, because what their belief is, and one of the pitfalls may be for you, is that you believe that your expenses are going to go down in retirement. Maybe you haven't even asked anybody about the inflation. Maybe you haven't asked anybody about the taxes. And if we haven't dealt with an inflation question that we've talked about in previous shows, where we've gone from 2020 to 2024 and inflation has gone up 24%, and you're using a 2% inflation within your plan, the thing is it's probably a misnomer or a fallacy that your expenses are going to go down in retirement, right?
Oh, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually, in fact, the opposite, because a lot of people think, oh, when I'm in retirement, my expenses are going to go down. I have literally, in all the years I've been in this business, and my dad before me, have never, ever, ever seen that happen. Not once, never. Because think about it. I mean, it makes sense, right? Every day's a Saturday when you're retired.
Yep.
So what are you going to do? Unless you're sitting on the front porch doing nothing, you're going to be out and about and doing things that might cost money, right? When you were at work all day, you weren't doing those things. So you will typically spend more money. Typically in the first 2 to 3 years, you'll spend a lot more than you anticipated, and then it'll kind of calm down from there. But the other thing is increases in health costs, right?
Astronomical.
And unfortunately, as we age, we need more and more healthcare professionals helping us. And so those costs just grow. So we've got to take into account inflation. You will spend more money. We've got to take into account increase in healthcare costs. And having the mindset that my costs are going to go down in retirement, Brad, that's a very dangerous way of thinking.
Well, what we're dealing with are the pitfalls that people are running into all the time. And that's why you need a Texas Wealth Report that figures out, how is inflation going to impact me over the next 30 years? How's my tax situation going to be as my partnership with the government continues? And how do I get them out of this partnership? When do I do my Social Security? Has my budget actually been realistic for what I want to do for the rest of my life? What is my goal for the next 30 years? Wouldn't you want to know that you have enough to take you into and through retirement just the way you want it to be? That's why we want you to come in for a complimentary review and get your Texas Wealth Report so we can answer the questions to make this the retirement of your dreams. Don't wait any longer. Call now, 866-254-8026. A copy of the book that Summer has put together is yours as well. We're so grateful for your time. Thanks for being with us on the Texas Wealth Report. We'll see you soon.